Hey, I was sent a link to another video that claims they can prove God exists. Let's take a look.
Josh Fierstein here. So I've been issued a challenge to publicly prove that God exists and that atheism and evolution are illogical and just plain don't make sense, and without using a Bible. So here we go.
Great, another Fierstein video. There is one thing about his videos I like. He talks so fast that I can lapse into my occasionally rushed speech and still come off as rather sedate. But there is one downside to his videos, apart from actually having to listen to them. Hold on. Okay, there we go. He really should look into getting a better camera. Okay, so you're going to prove God exists? Perfect. What have you got this time?
You know, it's funny because a lot of times people that don't want me to use a Bible, they say things like, oh my God, that's just so illogical. Evolution is the only logical explanation.
Wow. Strawman and juvenile mocking? You're off to a really classy start there, Josh.
But let's really look at how logical evolution really is.
Great. Alright, if you're not going to use the claims in the Bible, I assume you're going to have some facts and evidence to support your God hypothesis. As for how logical evolution is, remember, it's the only theory that has any kind of evidence behind it and has not been disproven.
Imagine that you've never read a history book, and all of a sudden you're driving through South Dakota and you see a mountain with 4 big faces on it. Well, we know it's Mount Rushmore, but say you didn't. And say all of a sudden you see it, would you just assume that that was a product of evolution, that the mountain had just evolved that way? Or would you think that maybe that there had been an artist or a designer that had somehow carved those faces into that mountain?
With something that detailed? Yes, I would assume those faces were carved into the mountain. They are much more detailed than what we would expect from erosion or natural forces. But here's the thing. Nobody thinks that rocks or mountains evolve in any kind of biological sense. There is no method of replication that would create similar but slightly different rock structures, and no selective forces that would gravitate towards human faces. Biological organisms, on the other hand, do have processes... I can't say that now. Biological organisms, on the other hand, do have processes which do that. The way that creatures give birth or replicate is fraught with genetic differences, and natural selection is the process where changes that are beneficial are passed on.
I want you to really think about it. Think about the house that I live in, or that even you live in. Think about the car that you drive. Those are complex beings, and yet each one of them has a blueprint. Do you really think that the human body was built without a blueprint?
Yes, because like rocks, houses and cars do not make similar versions of themselves. They need a blueprint because they are planned and designed for a purpose. Humans and other natural biological things were not designed for any purpose. Our admittedly complex bodies are the end result of billions of years of trial and error.
Especially looking at DNA, the fact that inside of you that there's a 3 billion letter code that specifically tells exactly how you're made up. Doesn't that prove intelligent design?
No, it doesn't. That vastly complex DNA you talk about has been mutated by random changes over every generation for billions of years. From our single-celled origins to current humans, every time a new offspring has been created has been slightly different from its parents, with a slightly different genetic code, adding, subtracting, or changing it. All those changes over the years add up to enormously complex codes, but they have all been formed by natural processes.
The fact that your body has a blueprint, how can it have a blueprint if it doesn't have a designer?
Not really. DNA is not a blueprint as we think of it. That's a simplistic description to help understand an incredibly difficult subject. DNA contains the information needed to assemble proteins and regulate how and where different proteins are created. But it doesn't say, this is part of a hand, start putting hand stuff here. It's a blind process that has been built up over time, from simple to incredibly complex, but no supernatural forces have ever been needed.
Think about the Earth that we live in. Think about the fact that it's 8,000 miles in diameter. Think about the fact that it's 93 million miles from the sun. If it was any larger, well, the air would be far too dense and turn into water and cover the Earth. If it was any farther or closer to the sun, we would either freeze or we would burn to death. Think about the fact that it's tilted 23.5 degrees, which allows us seasons. Think about the fact that it's the right distance from the moon, that when it spins, that it's able to control the tides. Think about the fact that the atmosphere is 78% nitrogen and 21% oxygen.
First off, our orbit around the sun is not perfectly circular. The distance of the Earth to the sun varies several million miles throughout the year. And if the tilt was different, the seasons would be different, and maybe life would have developed on a separate path. Basically, you're saying if things were different, then things would be different, therefore God? But your conclusion doesn't follow. Life adapted to the way the world is, taking advantage of things like the seasons, the moon and tides, and the composition of the atmosphere. And with the vast amount of exoplanets out there, having at least one with the ability to support life is not surprising in the least.
I mean, even Stephen Hawking, the great physicist, had to admit that the universe and its laws of physics seem to be specifically designed for us.
I haven't been able to find that. Does anybody know where that quote came from? From the context, and especially the words seems to be, it sounds like this is the anthropic principle. We fit into the planet so well, it looks like it must have been designed for us, the same way that a hole is designed for a puddle, because the puddle fits into it so well. Where in reality, we have adapted to the conditions of the world, and not had the world set up just for us. Again, I've never heard Professor Hawking say the universe was created for us, so if anybody can clarify and give me a reference, I really would appreciate it.
Now think about this. When it comes to evolution, the one reason that evolution can never match up with science is that an organism has never been shown to gain genetic information.
Ugh. I've gone over this enough times. Let's try to find something new. Okay, I've done the Lenski experiments. Really like those ones. Did the Brown and Noli in a video recently. Okay, how about this one, the nylon-eating bacterium? In 1975, a new strain of Flavobacterium was found in the wastewaters of a nylon factory. This new strain of bacterium was able to digest byproducts of the nylon manufacturing process through mutation. The nylon product did not exist in nature previously, and other strains of Flavobacterium could not digest this product. But some in the waste could digest it, and were able to thrive over the bacterium that did not adapt. This new strain was able to do something that its ancestors could not do, an obvious gain to their genetics.
So how could something evolve from an atom, well, to a human being? How could it become molecule to man?
Molecules to man? Well, first off, I think you owe Ken Ham some royalties. He says that often enough, I think he has a patent on the phrase. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We already are made of molecules. I know, you probably find that really shocking. Our ancestors were made of molecules. Our descendants, bearing some major shift where we evolve into some kind of super intelligent shade of the color blue, will be made of molecules. The first self-replicating molecules were simple life made out of, surprise, molecules, which become multicellular creatures made out of molecules, which further evolved into more complex creatures, including humans, all made out of molecules. The term molecules to man is so imprecise it doesn't mean anything at all.
You know, I realize that there's a lot of people out there that draw pictures of apes and they're just this evolution into humans, but I could do the same thing with a flower and a windmill. But it doesn't mean that it's true. It's a good artist and a good story.
Yes, but here's the thing. Those pictures showing the evolution of man from other apes, and yes, we are still apes, are not guesses drawn willy-nilly. They are taken from the fossil evidence of past finds, showing the similarities of physiological structures of the creatures we have found. The pictures themselves are not evidence, but a graphical representation of what the evidence has shown us. What evidence have you found to support your flowers to windmills theory?
But the fact is that there's not one organism that has ever shown us that it has added genetic information.
I just did earlier with that nylon-eating bacterium example. Remember that handsome guy talking about it? Hell, in humans there are about 60 to 125 different genetic changes on average between the generations. So yes, we are all mutants with changes to our genetic information.
In fact, science has actually proven that organisms lose genetic information over time.
Well, yes, honestly, sometimes they do. The star-nosed mole has lost the genetic information it had for its eyes. It spent so much time in dark spaces that it was a waste of its energy to have eyes, so it lost the information its ancestors had. Losing unneeded things is just as much a part of evolution as gaining new ones. So yes, sometimes genetic information is lost. That does not mean that's what always happens.
So how could something evolve when it's actually in the process of devolving?
No, that's a huge misconception. There is no such thing as devolving. Creatures change to suit their environment. If it means they don't need something, that is not devolution, that is evolution, resulting in losing something that was superfluous to their survival and a drain on the body's resources. But evolution is always moving forward. No animal will ever change so it will be one day able to again breed with its ancestors that it previously genetically diverted from.
Another nail in the coffin of evolution? Well, this is just plain and simple. It's never been proven that life can come from non-life. End of story.
End of story? That's the best you can come up with? Okay, first off, evolution has nothing to do with abiogenesis. As one of my fans put it, abiogenesis is like evolution in the same way that the formation of heavy metals in collapsing stars relates to the making of jewelry. Abiogenesis is about how life began. Evolution is how life diversified. And secondly, we have shown self-replicating molecules are possible in a lab setting. We don't know if that's how life did begin on Earth, but it shows that it was possible to occur without a supernatural element.
Now, I want to tell you today that you have been designed by a God that loves you, a God that is life.
Okay, finally, this evidence for God. All right, let's see what you got.
And maybe today you're feeling inside of your heart, well, that you're just dead and you just feel down and you feel depressed. You just feel like you don't have any life left inside of you. I want you to know that through a relationship with Jesus Christ, that you can have that life yet again, that you can feel overjoyed, that you can feel full of peace and love and joy and happiness and all of these things.
Okay, so believing in God can make you feel good. You know what else does that? Crack. I've heard you have great feelings when you first take it. Are you trying to tell me that smoking crack and believing in God are the same things? And yes, I have felt down in the past, and I felt better in the past, neither of which were due to my belief or lack of any deity.
I was in your same condition not long ago, but now his love has filled me overflowing, and I feel the way, the truth, and the life, which is Jesus Christ.
Okay, so you have your feelings. Great. How can you use that to prove your feelings are an accurate description of the world? Feelings are good to have, but you can't use them to convince people that something is real, only that you feel that it's real.
I want to promise you today that if you just begin a conversation with him, he's waiting to talk with you. He's waiting to have a conversation that I promise is going to change your life.
I have tried that. I got curious a while back and thought, maybe I'm wrong. So I tried talking to God. I said to God, if you want me to believe in you, here's what I would need as a sign. According to the theology, he's omnipresent, so he must have been able to hear me. And he's omnipotent, so he would have been able to provide it. I still haven't seen that specific sign, so either God is not there, or it doesn't want me to believe in it. In either case, nothing seemed to want to have a conversation with me.
So God bless you. Have a great day. If you agree with me, please take a moment and click share. That's how this message gets spread around the world. There's thousands of atheists that are out there that are waiting to hear this logical explanation of how the Bible makes way more sense than some theory of evolution.
Well, to start, you didn't disprove evolution. At all. You brought up the same old tired arguments, which have been previously disputed by people much, much smarter than me. And just for the sake of argument, let's say you did disprove evolution. So what? That doesn't mean that God just jumps in to fill our void of information. What would they call that argument? Where the gaps in our knowledge are automatically filled by God? It's got a name, I'm sure of it. On the tip of my tongue. If it was shown that evolution wasn't true, then, as of right now, we wouldn't know how life got so diverse. But that doesn't mean we would just then say, well, must be God. If you want to prove something, you need evidence for it, not just an attempt, and frankly you failed, to disprove a different theory.
Open up your eyes. Life is poetry in motion. Ride the open sky. I'll be okay as soon as I'm on my way.
Alright, glad to put those away.